it. I have been, if I say it in a very brief way, I have been taking care of the poorest people in the world, but the wealthiest people of the world too, including 15 chiefs of states. I am not bragging, I'm sorry about it. It was very lucky, but not too many chiropractors have had the chance to adjust 15 chiefs of states around the world. I'm not proud of myself, I'm proud of chiropractic because it means that anybody, if it is explained properly, can understand chiropractic and benefit from it. It's all a matter of communication. We will speak a lot about communication this evening, if you are okay with that. And let's keep in mind that without proper information, communication, connection, there would not be a human body, which means that communication is extremely important between us. And it's a pity that we don't communicate enough in our profession. We've got to unite, and we should unite about the principles of our profession, which define its identity, its originality. This is our sacred trust, as some American people call that. Sacred
Okay.
trust is originality and the definition of chiropractic. So, in 2 words, I've been enjoying myself. I've been working in Switzerland, in France. I had an office shortly in England too, and in Paris, and in Germany for the last 30 years. And why Germany, you might ask? Because when I started in Germany, there was no chiropractic practically. So I was a pioneer, and this is exactly what I wanted. And after a few years, which is not very much, 3, 4 years, I had 5 offices in Germany with a lot of colleagues, 10, 12, 15 colleagues working in these offices with me around. We had the same philosophy, the same way to work, to the procedure, I would say, with patients. Very efficient, very effective. Well, I published a few books, so I was invited on TV, on radio, in newspapers, on magazine. It has helped me a lot to promote chiropractic in Germany, and now chiropractic is booming in this country. In Germany, there is even an institute. I was talking with Axel about it. The university in Dresden is offering a bachelor and a master program for chiropractic, which is relatively new. So it's a new place for German students to learn chiropractic in Europe, which is great. And one last word about Germany. German people are very keen on natural medicine. They love chiropractic. They respect our job. They respect our profession. They are highly interested. They are very nice patients. I really enjoyed working there. And at the time being, I have 2 young French people working with me and an American guy. This is the situation. This is my situation today. I've told you everything. You notice that. I'm very open with you. So should I tell you what we are going to speak about, if you are okay with that? Yep.
Yes, yes, yes. Go on.
Okay. So what I was planning is to speak about the question first. Questions are highly important. Picasso said computers are not interesting because they only have answers. They don't ask questions. Questions are very, very important. Who in our society who is asking a lot of questions? Adults or kids? Who is more intelligent? Adults or children?
Kids.
The children are highly intelligent. They learn a lot faster. They can learn 30 days, 30 new words in one day. Can you do that? They learn a lot of stuff. And babies learn too. They learn very, very quickly because they don't know. The condition to learn is not to know. So my question is, chiropractic is a plain technique or plain thinking? And my proposal tonight to you is to adjust your thinking. You cannot expect to be very successful, have a lot of pleasure in your profession if your thinking is not adjusted properly. I thank you, Alex, again. I am going to be very open with you. I have nothing to sell, as you know, but I would love, I am very thrilled, I'm very honored to be able to share my 50 years experience with you, a very rich experience on my profession, our profession, can give us so much So much, so much. It's not a boring job at all. I have no intention to stop seeing patients. I would love to see patients until the very end of my life. I have played golf for years. I have been skiing, sailing. I've done a lot of stuff, but nothing has given me more pleasure than to adjust people and see results, to be moved. When you change a kid's life, you go home and you are a king. You are at the top of the mountain, and nobody can take you down. You are so happy. You are moved inside. Your entire body is thrilled. Your mind is thrilled. Your heart is beating quicker. And I have experienced that so much. It's like a drug. I am addicted to that pleasure to see people and to see the change. And I tell you very quickly, I have a lot of stuff to say to you this evening, but I tell you something very quickly to reassure you. Chiropractic works 100% of the time, not 99, not 90, not 80. This is bullshit. It works 100% of the time. And this is what we will talk about this evening if you allow me to do so. Because anytime we adjust somebody, we introduce an energy, a force. We stimulate the intelligence of the body, and the body doesn't have the choice. Our body is programmed to survive, so he has to pick up the information and propose an answer to that information. This is our job. This is all we do. We don't cure anything. And as I told you, I was called by very important people around the world. I have no idea how to cure sciatica or headaches. I don't cure disease. I have not learned that at all. But what I have learned to do a little bit is to change something in the body, to change a little millimeter or two, to change, to introduce that force. And the body will pick up that force and use it in the most intelligent way. Because as I already said, our body is programmed to survive. And this programming doesn't come from last century, doesn't come from 16th century, doesn't come from 5th century. It comes from billions of years. Let's not forget about this. Life is not luck. Life is a process that has been in evolution for billions of years, which is a lot of practice. So you understand that we are confronted in chiropractic with pure intelligence. And I will define intelligence for you. And this is an important definition because this definition you can use for everything. You can use it for UPS, Google, Volkswagen, your body, your practice, your family, whatever you want. So this is my definition of intelligence that I have used and borrowed from somebody called Chiompo, Italian guy who wrote it in a medical encyclopedia. And it says, intelligence is the capacity of an organism to perceive an information, analyze information, eventually save it, like in a computer when you save something, and propose an individual, unique, punctual survival answer. So these words are so important in our profession. Remember what I said, unique answer, individual answer, punctual answer. So you might have heard some people say, yeah, chiropractic is not evidence-based because you cannot reproduce what you do. Sure, we cannot reproduce anything because nature doesn't reproduce itself as you might have learned, which is wrong. Nature recreates itself each time. In other words, there are not two snowflakes the same in the world. Not two snowflakes. Some people have studied that years. They never found two snowflakes the same. There are not two people the same in the world. Two kids the same. Two sciatica the same. Two headaches the same. Two low back pain the same. Each time it's a new situation. And what's happening when we are confronted to a new situation? It's very simple. We don't know. As I said before about the kids who don't know something. So if you don't know, you ask and you try to understand. But if you think you know, you don't need to think. You are one of these Pavlov dog. You know, the Pavlov dog that is salivating with the clock, with the whatever, the bell. So this is as a chiropractor, we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. If I am the big guy. I have sorted out so many people and everything. But each time it's a new situation. So we have to cultivate modesty, humility, We never know. And we are always dealing with complexity, something very complex. Do you know anything more complex than the human body? There is nothing in the universe. We are the most complex structures in the universe. Let's not forget about it. So if we reduce people to pain, you lose a lot about one person. And remember that beautiful sentence from Hippocrates. He said, don't tell me about the condition. Tell me about the person that presents that condition. So at that time, we were talking about humane medicine. Chiropractic is the only humane medicine that's left, because the other medicine, the allopathic medicine, has become a technical medicine. And it's going to get worse with artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is going to change a lot in the way to handle people. Only the symptoms will be looked after. So you have pain there, let's take care of it. Let's make this procedure. Or if the medical doctor doesn't follow the procedure, he could be sued. So everybody will follow the procedures. You see what's happening right now with COVID, and the vaccination and the test and everything? If you don't follow the stuff, you're going to be in trouble. A lot of people resist, and we might have a chance to work it out, but it's not a victory yet. It's going to be very difficult, because in front of this concept, there is a lot of money and a lot of power. But as soon as you lose your free choice, you start to be in jail. You are jailed. And this is going to happen in medicine within the next 10 years with artificial intelligence. I will tell you one word about artificial intelligence, evidence-based medicine, and because I think it's quite interesting what's happening right now. You know, our way of thinking defines us in two words: chiropractic. And remember that I am an old man. I've read a few books. I've learned a lot. I'm still learning every day. Chiropractic offers us a way of thinking which is already in the future. It is grounded in the past. All the ancient philosophers, doctors like Hippocrates and so, Arceus, all these guys, they think the same way as we should think as chiropractors. And you know, one of the biggest problems of chiropractic I found in my entire life, we've been too much in advance on a lot of stuff. And I will cite you some sentences from D.D. Palmer and some top medical doctors from today, and you will see how close they are. So we've been in advance on a lot of stuff. And D.D. Palmer was speaking about energy, force, intelligence, waves, all kind of stuff, vibration, stuff like that at the beginning of the 20th century. But at the time, 20th century, that was the beginning of Standard Oil from Mr. Rockefeller on the beginning of chemistry. And Rockefeller put on the table $100 million to define medicine. And he said, let's eradicate all the empiric medicines from the Greek, from the Egyptian, from Africa, from South America, from Tibet, from China, from India. He didn't believe into that. He wanted to install a new allopathic medicine based on drugs, based on chemistry, uniquely. And this is the medicine we have today. This is what has taken over. And funnily enough, I am sorry if I am taking short ways sometimes, but you've got to follow me. It's good exercise for your mind. Who is doing exactly the same thing today, trying to define medicine in the 21st century? Bill Gates is exactly doing the same thing today as Rockefeller did at the beginning of the 20th century, which, because he's already involved very much in the World Health Organization, as you know, financially and mentally, giving instruction what to do and everything. We live a crazy world at the time being. So you can say everything okay, Pianta is a complotist, he's crazy and everything. If the richest guy in the world, who could stop hunger in the world, who could provide education to all kids in the world, chooses to program mosquitoes, genetic modified mosquitoes to fight disease, I am getting worried. Do you understand? Have you heard about this? He's investing into a program to train mosquitoes, genetically modified, hoping that these mosquitoes could fight disease. This is where we are now. Okay, so as chiropractors, you could choose to become only a technician, working with your hands, and you become the expert for the fifth lumbar. Fine, I respect that. This is your choice. And you can become an expert in shoulder or for children. You know, the little break under the tongue for kids too. Whatever you choose to do is great for me. I have no problem. But it would be a pity to forget our sacred trust and to forget that we have much, much, much more to offer. Chiropractic is political. It's a way to live. It's a way to affect the entire society and humanity. On humanity, I'm not pessimistic, believe me. On the contrary, I think a crisis is very positive because it forces to go towards changes, which is great. It is very necessary to change our paradigm. We've been functioning, we've been functioning for 100 years with the pathogenesis paradigm. What is a pathogenesis function? What is it? Paradigm based on pathology. You have a headache, you take aspirin. You've got aggressivity, criminality, what do? You send the police. You've got hyperactive kid, you give Ritalin. Do you understand? It's always fighting the symptoms. You've got a fire, you send the fire people. Fire squad. You've got drugs, you fight the special forces to fight drugs in the streets, for example. Always fighting symptoms. This is pathogenesis. And what chiropractic proposes is saluto, which is health, salutogenesis, which means why don't we try to to think about a society that would be built on health, on well-being, from birth on all the way, to follow the people, to help the children, to help the women to have their babies in a good way, in a healthy way. Not to wait for the problems, but to try to do something before the problem comes. This is chiropractic. This is what we have to offer. So it is a change in society. So chiropractic is based on life, not on disease, on death. And this is the big difference that Palmer already defined at that time. It is not based on pathologies, but some people have twisted it. And now in some colleges, they only teach fighting disease, which is not chiropractic. It's a technique. So are you a thinker or a technician? You choose. I have chosen. But don't forget something. Anything starts with thinking. If you want to build a house, you can move bricks as much as you want. If you have no plan about your house, you will never reach anything. Same thing for a plane. Same thing if you want to build a plane. Same thing if you want to build a practice. Same thing if you want to build a private life, which is successful. It doesn't happen just like this. You've got to think about the way to make it work. You get to get involved, not to be passive, but to get involved dynamically. And this provides a lot of pleasure. If you are passive and do nothing and wait and see what's happening, it's not very nice. No, you got to be active, get involved. What is the best way to get involved? Think. What do we need to think? We need food. What is food for thinking? Games on the telephone? No. Reading, 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 gathering information. So I say it very quickly. There are three factors that condition life. Your life, your body, your office later. As I told you before, Volkswagen, big organization and everything. The three factors that define everything that tries to survive. It has to do with three main things: information, communication, connection. So if you are deprived of information, your body cannot answer. If there is no communication between the right leg and the left leg, you can imagine what's happening. And if the right foot doesn't stay connected to the left foot, you can understand what's going on too. So these three factors are defining anything that needs to survive. But I'm lying a bit, or I'm not saying everything, because information is not enough. What's important, and even more important, it is the way each person can interpret information. And this is individual. I give you a quick example. You have 30 people studying chiropractic in one room with the same teachers, the same program, the same books, the same exams and everything. Do you think the 30 students will have the same future later in life when they practice? No, it's individual, right? So we are all exposed to the same information with books and TV and magazines and whatever you want. What's important is what you think about this, how you interpret this information, because this interpretation will guide your answer. And it will guide the answer, your body will react, your mind will react, the way you will take decision and make moves in your life. So this is highly important. Communication, it's an art, it's a technique, it's something to learn, but it's vital. If structures don't communicate with one another, it's a disease. Think about something funny. If you are going to a pediatrician waiting room, you have different kids, different ages. It has been calculated that the children needs no more than 10 minutes in order to establish communication between them. What's interesting is that you have babies 6 months old and babies 9 months old, or little children 12 months old and everything. They tend to communicate in regard to their age directly, spontaneously. In other words, the 6 month old will choose contact with the 6 month old rather than a 9 month old. Isn't that funny? And they get in touch with one another without speaking. They cannot speak, but just by looking at one another and gathering information for the attitude, body language already says a lot. Fascinating, fascinating. You see, chiropractic respects life, respects the intelligence of the body. And this intelligence, this is that has made life possible up until today. And what are we doing now? We are trying to control this intelligence. Some people are trying to control life on Earth. Definitely. They've been controlling gold, oil, iron, all kind of minerals and stuff. The last thing to control, the new challenge, is to control life. But what's happening in the process is that life is dead. Life is dying. You know that we are living the phase of sixth extinction phase. Maybe you heard about Arthur Bertrand, you know, that French guy who made books about geography and about stuff. The number of wild animals that have disappeared within the last 40 years is about 60%. We are killing life. We are killing the oceans. We are killing the air. We are destroying our water. We are destroying our soils. I'm not negative. You can find this information from scientists everywhere around you if you're a bit curious. Please stay curious, like kids. Kids are more intelligent, they are more curious. They are more curious because they don't know. All progress is based not on what we know, as you are learned in school, which is completely wrong. All progress is based on unknown, curiosity, wishing to learn more and to understand more. This is the basis of science. Science never knows. Science is always moving forward because they are very unhappy. One scientist finds something, produces it, publishes it, but a day later he's in laboratory and he tries to understand something else. There is no end to it. And the same for a chiropractor. You are in your office, you get good results, you are very happy. You go home, you share this with your wife or with your husband, and then a day later, you are in your office and it starts all over again with new patients you've never seen in your entire life. It's a new situation. And that's a stimulus. You understand why our job cannot be boring. Now, it depends on the way you look at people. If you look at people as sciatica pain, it's going to be a pain for you every day. You're going to deal with pain every morning until evening. But if you twist your mind and start thinking that you are not dealing with pain, but you are dealing with life, with the capacity of the body to adapt and to react positively, then you say, wow, I am witnessing every day a wonder, the wonder of changes, the wonder of adapting, reacting, moving. Because if you touch somebody just like this, something is happening. Even if you don't see it right away, you cannot notice it right away, but inside, something is happening. Just by putting your hand on somebody's shoulder, the heartbeat is going to be quicker. The breathing rhythm is going to change too. It will accelerate a little bit. You are making changes in the body just by looking at somebody, by smiling at somebody, by one word, by one touch. Because this is how sensitive our body is. No information is free. It has always an impact. It has always consequences. And you know this sentence, nobody knows the effect of what you think, do, will be in a few years on a lot of people. PJD said that. Nobody knows exactly the effect of what you think, do in a few years on maybe millions of people. This is our job. We have a fantastic job. Not boring, never the same. But if you choose only to treat disease and pain, you're going to see pain. So we find what we see. We are what we think. Are you the great healer yourself? Are you a beautiful technician? Or are you a thinker? Are you a philosopher? Are you a friend of helping humanity to change? Because, sounds like big words, but I had a teacher when I was young. When I was your age, I was very, very young. I was 21 years old, something like that, in America. His name was Reginald Gold. And Reggie Gold used to have a beautiful sentence. He used to say, well, I will cite you two sentences from him that I never forgot. One word about my teachers. That was a long time ago when I was studying. It was 55 years ago. I remember the name of each of my teachers because I respected them so much and they were so interesting. I am thankful. I'm still very, very thankful today. So Reggie Gold used to say, if you young guys are not here to change the world, your life will only be Mickey Mouse business. That was his own word. Today is a time to change our society and to change the world. If you don't do it, nobody will do it. Or it's going to be even more difficult for your own children because it's getting worse and worse. It's a phenomenon called entropy. This entropy mechanism is going on for us, for everything that's alive, in fact. And you can become conscious of this and change that. And this is why it's so important to do philosophy, to speak about it, to exchange ideas about it and think, what could we do? What could we do practically? I tell you, in my own eyes, if we could promote chiropractic philosophy, the way of thinking, which is vitalism, which is salutogenesis, and don't be afraid of the word vitalism, please. I will speak one word later about this a little more. But it's very important because treating structure is a mistake. Why? Because there is no structure. You were lied. You know, I followed the professor, he was a director of the University of Physics in München, Professor Hans-Peter Dürr. He died now. And he started his conferences and used to say, hitting the table with his hand like this. He says, this is not a table. This is energy. There is no structural thing. It's only energy. And it's the same for the body. Forget the bones. We are energy. Even a bone is energy. It's an organization of energy, special organization. Don't reduce the body, please, to structures on bones and muscles and stuff like that. It's a lot more. It's a lot more. It's a lot more sensitive. It's a lot more intelligent. So Reggie used to say that if you are not here to change the world, you are only doing Mickey Mouse business. Well, you can. It's your choice, respect. And he used also another sentence that I never forgot that I cite and use when I give seminars and stuff. He used to say, you cannot force people. People are like boiled spaghetti. You can pull them, but you cannot pull them. In other words, you cannot force people. You cannot impose your thinking. You've got to seduce people by your personality, by the person you are. And please believe me, we cannot cheat. Don't think that you can try to be another person than the one you are. You cannot do that. You can make an attempt, but it won't function. Good chiropractors are number one good persons, good people. People who respect others, who respect life, and who do everything they can to help people, not for money, not for profit, to give service. I also learned this sentence from an old colleague of mine when I was very young. When I was in school in America, attending a seminar in Atlanta, I remember that. He was there inviting the young people, the French people. And he used to tell me, Jean-Paul, do you want to be successful later? And I said, yeah, why not? I would prefer that. I was very poor. I had a job, next to my studies. I had a little daughter already, Valérie. And he used to say, Jean-Paul, never, ever work for money. Do your job and money will flow. And this guy was extremely successful. This is why I never forgot that. And I'm very thankful. Learn from people who've been doing it. Okay, it's like neuro-linguistic programming. If you want to learn to become a profi football player, you are not going to look at shows with ice skating. You are going to look at the football player, right? Chiropractic the same way. Be interested with health. Anything that's to do with health. And as a joke, I say, there is sometimes more to learn about chiropractic with medical professors than with your own teachers, which is, I find very, very funny. Because the medical professor, they've got a vision. They're older, they see things with a broader spectrum than some younger people who doesn't have this wisdom, I would say. So learn from anybody you can. Anybody. You can learn from philosophers. I'm thinking about Eric Fromm, for example, and guys like that. Nietzsche has written about chiropractic, practically. I see chiropractic everywhere, in any book. On any book I read, I underline it, or I have a paper, or I write notes, and I take notes on everything. Still today, and I enjoy it. Chiropractic is everywhere. Why? Because life is everywhere. But if you choose to see chiropractic only as pain fighter, then you are joining the club of the osteopath, the physical therapist, the masseur, the osteopath, the manual medicine, and crap like that. Fine. And these guys are busy because there is enough pain around the world. But have you noticed that the more we handle problems, the more problems there are in our society? Do you think there is less drug in the streets today than 20 years ago? How much money has been involved to try to eradicate drug in streets, in cities? Billions. No success. Why? Because the question is, why are these people taking drugs? Why? There is a reason. Who is asking? Because they are unhappy. Why are they unhappy? Because they lack values. They lack interest. They are scared of the future. They think they cannot cope with the future. They are unsatisfied with themselves. They don't trust themselves. They don't trust life. And this is why this unhappiness creates disease. Being happy helps to be healthy. Don't you think there is a relationship between happiness and health? Sure, there is a relationship. Don't you think that when people are happy, they are more open-minded than when they are permanently under stress, using the post-brain, the protecting brain, rather than frontal lobe, creative, innovative? This is the whole situation. Our whole system, pathogenetic, cultivates fear. Fear. Take these drugs, otherwise this is going to happen to you. Take this vaccine, although they don't know what's going to happen with the vaccine, how your body will react. It's impossible to predict because there are not two people the same in the entire world. In the history of mankind, and there might have been 100 billion people on Earth. 100 billion. It's a lot. But they are not two the same. How can one pill have the same effect on everybody? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. It has nothing to do with science. Nothing to do. So it's important to keep this in mind. If we keep cultivating the fight against symptoms, we lost it. We lost it. The alternative today is to promote anything that has to do with helping life, supporting life, because this is our future. And this is the future of our society, the future of the children and everybody. So good food, fresh air, good water, education. But education today, as it is today, I'm not talking about chiropractic college, although I could, but starting from the little school for the little kids, the number one value that's promoted has to do with fear. Don't do that. If you do that, what's going to happen to you? Threats. And it is again the same today. If people are stepping out, they are punished. Look at the medical doctors now that are opposing the COVID strategy, the vaccines and everything. They are discriminated. They are not even invited on television anymore or in newspapers and stuff like that. So being chiropractor, you might expect to be discriminated because some people are going to say to you, maybe you've heard it already as a young student, yeah, chiropractic, but it's not scientific because it's not evidence-based and because you cannot reproduce what you do. Fine, fine. I love to hear this. I love it because it's an opportunity to say and to think about the three factors I already mentioned to you. Unique. Each answer from the intelligence is unique, individual, and punctual. So if at 10 o'clock in the morning, you provide an adjustment to anybody, and in the afternoon you start again at 3 o'clock, and you try to give exactly the same adjustment, it will never be the same adjustment because your patient is different, you are different. You heard the sentence, one cannot swim twice in the same river. You heard about this one, right? The same thing with chiropractic. So each time you give an adjustment, it's unique. Your patient in the afternoon will have had lunch, maybe he will be a little more tired, maybe he will have read an article in a newspaper that was a bit negative or a bit positive, or he got a telephone call from his kid or whatever. He's another person. He's changing all the time. He's changing every single second. What doesn't change? Our belief system. We are slaves of what we believe. This is why forget about it, every belief. Don't trust anybody. Don't trust nobody. Think, rather. Think for yourself. Don't listen to people on television telling you all this and this and this and this. They have an agenda. They all have an agenda. Pfizer, that big company today making billions, Pfizer in 2009 was condemned for $2.3 billion for bribery, lying, false information, false advertising. And these guys now are affecting your own health. Do you trust them? Fine, that's your choice. I respect your choice. I respect your thinking. But think a bit broader. Go back to 2009 and find the information about Pfizer, and you will understand why you have to be very careful with these people. They have an agenda. And the whole system is functioning because of belief system. I believe I have to follow the orders. I believe I've got to kill Jews because I was told to kill Jews, for example. Forget the belief, it's a restriction of intelligence. Anytime you don't use your intelligence, it's going down. It's going down. Intelligence is like a muscle. Intelligence is a capacity to ask questions to interpret information and never be satisfied. So you have to be curious all the time. You cannot read only one book. You've got to learn permanently and keep your eyes open. Think about something. The father is driving his kid to school in the morning, and the little child is in the back, and he looks, oh, look at this bird, or look at this roof, look at the church, look at this. The father doesn't see anything because he's been driving his car all the time. He knows that road. He could do it with closed eyes, but the kid's still watching. He's curious. He gathers information. So, on everything we choose to do has to do with our interpretation of this information. So, this is a story of a journalist who heard about two brothers. One brother is in jail, and one brother is extremely successful in a big building, having his offices in a big building in California. So, he goes first to the guy in jail and says, I heard about your story, which is quite amazing with the difference with your brother and everything. How can you explain that to me? And the guy in jail says, well, it's very simple. My father used to drink a lot. He used to beat my mother, to beat me up and everything. I had no choice. I was not lucky. I had a bad youth, terrible youth, a lot of traumas and a lot of sadness and everything. That's why. So the journalist can take notes like this. He said, okay, thank you very much. And he goes to the brother in the big building with thousands of people working around him and nice secretaries and everything on windows and a nice view. But he asked the guy, how do you explain your success? I just visited your brother in jail. He explained that to me, situation. And the brother says, look, at home, Our father was drinking a lot. He was beating our mother, beating us up on everything. And I did not want that kind of life for my children. That's why I chose another path. Do you understand what I mean? So you could go in one school or another school. You can be successful or not successful. It depends on you. Depends on when you choose to do, to believe, and to think. The same as these two guys, one in jail and one successful. You can you can complain about the weather, you can complain about bad luck, about bad circumstances and everything, but at the end, we are responsible for what we do. And as a chiropractor, you have the responsibility to think, to keep an open mind on each patient, not to treat the disease, not to treat the fifth lumbar, not to treat a reduced canal. The very latest thing is a canal, how broad is that canal? Is it reduced or big and everything? In 2 words, I've seen people with a reduced canal, no pain, and people with a normal canal and acute pains. Again, it's an individual situation and reaction. So, but at the time being, it's a new fashion. Before, with the opioid, the new fashion, pain was decided to be an objective signal for disease or health. It has been taken away because it killed, I heard about 60,000 people in the States overtaking drugs and stuff like that. Read a lot, please. And one book has impressed me when I was very young, written in the 70s by a guy called Ivan Illich. He wrote a book called Nemesis Medical. Nemesis is a goddess of revenge. And in this book, Nemesis Medical, which is now 50 years old, you will see what he wrote at the time. It's so interesting. So interesting. What he wrote is exactly true today. And he already wrote about the comparison of various diseases that went off on their own without vaccine, without drugs or anything. The curve of these diseases went down. Entropy, as I said before, there are cycles of disease. This is true. This is true with poliomyelitis. This is true with tuberculosis. This is true for a lot of diseases. Quite interesting. So he was a professor at the University of Mexico, a colleague of ours. Ted Cohen knew him personally, and Ted Cohen is the guy in the States who worked with a lawyer on that I met, by the way, luckily in America once. And this lawyer won the fight against the American Medical Association that decided to eradicate our profession many years ago. Maybe you heard about that. The medical profession did not like chiropractic because it was competing in our concept. One concept fighting disease, one concept promoting life. This is the big difference between the two. They didn't like that. They wanted the monopoly to control everything, to control disease, to be the boss of disease. And this lawyer, friend from this Ivan Illich, on Ted Cohen, maybe you will see his name on internet everywhere, he managed to win that court case against the American Medical Association, which was one of the strongest lobby in the States. And this is why you are here today. This is why you can study today. So we should be very thankful to these people, smart people. Okay, what else can I tell you? I can tell you too that you've got a lot in your hands. You've got a lot to do. But it will be easier for you if you learn, if you keep learning. And don't stay on conviction, certitudes. If you are certain about something, it's difficult to progress. I've taken care of high athletes, high profile athletes, artists to scientists to political people too. But one thing has impressed me, the people who are the most famous, the most competent in their job. They are very humble. They are all very humble, very modest, and they are never happy. They always try to better the situation in a certain way. So they go further. I'm thinking about Tiger Woods, for example. I was in Augusta for that big Masters playing golf. He won the Masters. So he won one at the time. He won $1 million in 1 week. And it was a very stressing week. Believe me, I've lived it. And at the end of the game, there is a big clubhouse and there is a special room for all the people who wear that famous green jacket, And the green jacket is reserved for all people who won that Augusta, that big Masters. So he was there. He had an agent to sign contracts, advertising contracts and stuff like that. And it was some journalist and stuff. And then after 15, 20 minutes, he left. So I look and I saw him. Where did he go? He went with his caddy to the driving range. Why? The question is why. If you want to achieve anything in life, ask you why permanently, from morning until evening. It doesn't cost anything, but it's the only way to pick up information and learn more. Why? Why did this guy who won $1 million in 1 week, who is known all around the world and everything, leaves that ceremony, after having received this trophy on his check? He went to the driving range with his caddy. Why? Because he wanted to correct a little detail. Why did he want to correct this little detail? To become more famous? To make more money? No, for himself. For his pleasure. To grow himself, because he thought he could improve a little something with his swing. Isn't that crazy? It is the same thing. I have a greatest respect for the people who do ice skating alone or ice skating on couple, man and woman. Can you imagine the work, the perfection to do that? These people, they make it look like very easy, harmony, but they worked. They repeated that thousands of years to be able to make that dance and that movie and these moves, complicated moves and everything with the music and all that. It's training, 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 training. Why do I speak about this now? Because we have the chance in our profession to have the opportunity to train ourselves every day with hundreds of people or tens of people or hundreds a week. Doesn't matter. It's your choice. But you are training. You are stimulating your own intelligence by helping other intelligences. Do you understand? And this exchange of intelligence makes us richer. We grow bigger. And when we grow bigger, we are more impact on other people because we build trust. You cannot buy trust. But if you speak intelligently to your patient, whether it is a chief of state or a big Tiger Wood or Ballesteros or whoever you want, these people, they listen to you because you speak another language than the normal physiotherapist next to you or osteopath and stuff like that. And this is the wealth of chiropractic. This is a sacred trust I was telling you about. Please cultivate that. If there is one only thing to remember this evening, respect chiropractic identity. Respect the originality of chiropractic. Don't fall into the trap. Don't fall with all the other guys who are the best healers in the world. Nobody heals anything. Or there are some people, they can, as we say, cut the fire, when somebody got burned and stuff like that. Okay, fine, I respect that too. I respect anything. But we don't heal. The body heals. The energy that has built the body can heal the body. But if there is a restriction due to physical trauma, chemical trauma, emotional trauma, then there is stress in our body. And this stress affects everything. Stress is the number one factor of disease, not number two, number one. So funnily enough, I discovered one thing. You all heard about Hans Selye, right? He was a Nobel Prize. He was the father of stress. He's the guy who defined the 3 phases, the way stress starts in the body. You have a shock, you have a trauma, and then this is the first phase. And the second phase is that, I'm sorry, the second phase is an adaptation. So the body is trying to compensate. Okay, you have a small accident with your right foot, and the body is compensating, asking a little extra work from the knee or from the other foot. It can last 2 days, can last 2 weeks, can last 2 months or 2 years. And then the body reaches that period where it cannot compensate anymore. It says, hey, I can't. I've been working extra hours, extra work, extra load for me. I can't anymore. And this is when the situation becomes a bit more serious. Symptoms are coming in. So Hans Selye described that process. And you know what he used to do? He was a very bad guy. He used to tie the legs of a rat. And he was forcing the rats to swim without their legs, only with their arms. And then he was measuring the changes with the production of cortisol from the adrenal glands and stuff like that. So these three phases were defined from Selye 10 years after Palmer. And Palmer defined the three phases too exactly the same way, 10 years earlier than Selye. Exactly the same. The shock, the subluxation going on, let's call it subluxation, which is a stress period, in the stress situation in the body. And then at the end, the symptoms really explode, become serious and serious and serious. And this is that process. So it's a time process. Our body is dictated by time. Nature has a lot to do with time. Time changes, always, permanently. Never the same, never the same. New creation, new reaction, new factors affecting our life, new factors that coming from everywhere, from food, from bed, from emotion, from whatever you want, social stress, political stress even. So let's keep this in mind. We are dealing with complexity. If you reduce everything, you reduce life to pain. Okay, I have a headache, so I have no more life because I am a headache man. I have backache. I am condemned to have backache all my life. My mother used to have backaches. You hear that kind of negative talk all the time in your office. You will, if you haven't done it yet. So the idea is to try to explain to these people that they have a certain way of thinking which is reduced. Okay, this is a very important thing to understand. You stay in a room and you go to a corner, okay, 90 degrees, and you stand there in the corner. So you have 90 degrees information around you that you can see with your eyes, 90 degrees. You move from that corner against the wall, and suddenly you have twice as much. You have 180 degrees information, right? And then you move in the center of the room, and you are no more limited with 100 degrees information, but you have 360 degrees information. So the more information you receive, you perceive, the more you can find the proper adaptative answer, right? To survive, which will be, remember, never forget, unique, individual, punctual. Punctual. This is why one cannot reproduce chiropractic. Chiropractic respects the unicity of a person, of a situation, except again if you choose and make the mistake to reduce people to their symptoms. This is a loss and a lack of intelligence. So consider the person as a whole, always. People are coming with headache, look at the feet. People are feet problem, look at the head, look at the posture, look at everything. I will cite you something about posture in a couple of minutes. So this is highly important to respect that complexity and say, it's never a victory. The ice skating people, they train, but they are not sure they're going to make it. So they train again. Same for the golfer. Same for the guy who's racing with a car, Formula One car, for example, and stuff like that. Same for the artist. Picasso died at 6 o'clock in the morning. I think it was in April. 6 o'clock in the morning. What was he doing at 1:30? Painting. Why was he painting? To make money? To become more famous? 4 or 5 hours before his death, he was painting. Why? Why? Because he loved it. Because he loved it. Because it was his life. Because he got motivated and he got a lot of pleasure out of this creation. As a chiropractor, you create a relationship with the patient. You create something. You create a binding. You create trust, as I said earlier. You create respect. You create and you communicate and you stay connected. And then the guy is so happy and trust you and everything, he will bring you his kids, and his wife, and his brother, and his neighbor, and you will not be able to handle all the patients. But if you fight disease like all the physiotherapists, then you will have to have another attitude. And you will have a patient with pain there, and you will say, oh, this is bad. We should do so many sessions with this thing. And if you don't do that, it's going to get worse. Be very careful. This is the difference of attitude. And the chiropractor would say, let's take a look. Let's try to see what we can do to better the situation. You see the difference? This is chiropractic. What can we do to better our situation? Not use fear. The whole allopathic system is built on fear. The whole society system is built on fear, as I told you earlier, from small school, even in companies later in life. Follow the leader, obey the order. And if you don't obey the order, be ready to pay for the consequences. Chiropractic, no. You give a chance to life. You say, this structure, I was talking about the angle, 90 degree, 180 degree, 360 degree. If one little structure in the body is reduced in its mobility, any structure, could be the small finger joint there, or the hip joint, or the shoulder joint, or a neck vertebra, or whatever you want. If there is a reduced mobility, there is a loss in information, so a loss of capacity to adapt, and the stress situation will spread all over the place. And this is why if people have a whiplash in a car accident, 6 months later, they don't only have pain in the neck, they have pain in low back because it moves in the entire body. Same thing if somebody falls on his bottom, ice skating or whatever you want, this person could develop headaches a few months or a few weeks later. The body is one. And this is another concept that belongs to chiropractic. Don't cut the body into pieces. It has taken billions of years to build that unity, that togetherness of thousands of billions of cells that work together. It's not a coincidence, you know. So the body is one. As soon as you move your right foot, the left hand gets in motion. Even before, just if you take the decision to make a step forward and you start with your right foot, for example, right away there will be movement in your left hand joint. So it took me a long time to understand that. When I was young, I used to take care of the Swiss ski team. There was an old masseur there, younger than me at the time, but he told me, Jean-Paul, if you get a problem with the right foot, do something to the left, to the other hand. So in the evening, I got back home. It was in a chalet in Switzerland, and they had some friends there and colleagues and everything. And I said, "Look what I heard today." It was a big joke. This guy says the relationship between the right foot and the left hand, and I was laughing as an idiot because I didn't know. So years later, I wrote my first book, and I was sitting at my desk, and I tried to describe the way we walk. And why did I notice? If you walk, you put the right leg first and the left arm first, right? Which means that there is a relationship between right leg, left arm, on the opposite when you change. Which means right away, you just understood now with what I just said, that the right little finger is the best friend of the left little toe. And you go further. The right hand is the best friend of the left foot. And the elbow is the same as the knee. And the shoulder is the same as the hip joint. And if you look even a little more closely, what do you feel? You feel that there is a great deal of it looks the same. If you look at a hand or a foot, it's the same with the 5 toes and 5 fingers, right? The way it's built, the joint. If you look at the elbow, there is a bit of relationship with the knee too, right? You've got 2 bones down, tibia, peroneus, and you've got the femur head on top. And here it's humerus. But it's the same construction. If you look at the hip joint, the shoulder joint, it's exactly the same joints, right? Now, if you look at the sternum and the sacrum, they are both triangular structures like this, and they look quite alike, don't you think? Anatomically, look in a book, take a look, you will see. So whenever there is a stress situation here in front of the sternum, there might be stress with the sacrum. And you know what? If you fall on your eye, if you fell on your ass 10 years ago, it has affected your sacrum a little bit down there. You could have consequences with your sternum years later. You understand these relationships? These interdependencies, this is the wealth of chiropractic. This is our identity. So if you want to concentrate on the pain shoulder, fine, but never forget that the pain is the left shoulder or the right shoulder is the best friend of the opposite hip. They don't make one step in life without one another. That builds connection and friendship, right? This is what's happening in the body. Body is a matter of love. There is love between the feet. There is love between the leg and the arm, on the neck. On the neck is the same curve. Lordosis at the back. They work together permanently. The atlas doesn't make a move without the fifth lumbar. It's called the Loet brothers. I understand in France they don't teach that anymore. It doesn't exist. Bullshit. It has been existed for a billion years. Maybe not millions, because human beings are not so old. But hundreds of thousands of years. You corrected that yourself, I'm sure. Okay. I've been speaking already 1 hour, you guys. I could go on until tomorrow morning, but I don't want to, because I know how it is boring for you to look at this computer on the screen. If we would be in a room, speaking would be easier for everybody. But I understand that with no communication. There is a couple of things I just wanted to finish with that. And then you can ask a question. I will try to answer you. You see, look, as a joke. This is the notes I prepared. I don't know if you can see that. This is the notes I've done for you. Oh, did you notice something? I never use them. Why? Why? Ask you why. Ask yourself why. Because if I would have used these notes, I would not have used my intelligence. And I much prefer to speak with you with my intelligence than with my writing. Because any idiot can read notes. But you have to keep your mind, or stimulate your mind. And for that, you have to be free. So I always I have given a few lectures in my life. I always prepare notes because I feel more secure. But I never use them practically. Okay, sorry, it's coming. It's coming. Yeah. One concept I feel is important. I already mentioned it briefly before. In chiropractic, the number one sentence that we think when we approach a new situation is, I don't know. We don't know. So it takes a lot of courage to say, I don't know. If a kid says, I don't know in school, he's going to be punished, right? Because he's supposed to know the answers. And as a therapist, as a chiropractor, you're supposed to know the answer for sciatica or for shoulder pain and hip pain and stuff like that. But no, we don't know because we are each time confronted to a new situation. So think about the world, the society we are living in has been defined that people who knew, people who used evidence-based, 100% sure that what they would decide would be good for humanity. But they make a few mistakes. They thought there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. It was wrong. They thought asbestos was one of the greatest products to be used in construction. They were wrong. They used to think that Chesterfield cigarettes were the doctor's favorite cigarettes. You cannot remember that. You're much too young. But it was an advertising campaign. Chesterfield, the favorite doctor's cigarette, medical doctors, they were wrong. They were lying. Opioids were the best possible solution to bring back health. DDT, you heard about DDT. Glyphosate, same story today. OGM. Ritalin for children that are hyperactive, which is an amphetamine, which is very bad news for later. Statins, you heard about statins, cholesterol. They are forbidden now, but they thought it was great, you know? And Mediator, Vax. I don't know if you heard about these products. The people who produce Mediator, they were lately, last week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago in France, condemned to pay a few 100 million euro fine because they knew that their product killed people. They knew it. Despite that, they kept selling it. What am I telling you? Don't believe anybody. Be curious. Think by yourself. Don't accept that. So I have a lot of stuff about Bates. If we are, maybe one day we do that together. Palmer has been writing a lot about innate intelligence, right? Are you in conflict with this idea of intelligence? You have to know one thing. It has been defined in all cultures, all continents for thousands of years with different names. In Egypt, in Tibet, in China, Qi was the name. And this is homeostasis. You heard about homeostasis, huh? The law of homeostasis. So it has been everywhere all the time. But talking about this, Nisus, élan vital, you know, the von Bergson, maybe you heard about Bergson. Nietzsche, the will to power. Anyway, Palmer was dealing with this word energy, intelligence, vibration, everything. And a physicist called Fritjof Capra, he wrote a book called The Tao of Physics that I highly recommend too. He's a physicist, but he writes a lot about chiropractic concepts. And he defines life as the continuous dance of energy. When Palmer wrote this about energy at the beginning of the 20th century, the medical doctor thought, what is energy in the body? We are only considering disease and pain. So energy was a concept out of its time, taken out of the blue. And a few years later, after Palmer's book, there is a man called Max Planck. Maybe you heard about Max Planck. He was born in 1858. He died in 1947. He's the father of quantum physics. Nobel Prize, 1919. All matter, please listen to D.D. Palmer, Max Planck. All matter as its origin is force. One must assume behind this force the existence of a conscious and intelligent spirit. The spirit is the matrix of all matter. Now, this is a physicist. This is a Nobel Prize. This is not a little chiropractor, Pianta, saying this, right? So keep this in mind. This is what we are dealing with. We work with patients. We are making contact with that force. And all matter, which means your muscles, the bones, the ligaments, the joints, and everything, they find their origin in force. And behind this force is a conscious and intelligent spirit. This is what we are working with. Isn't that a nice job? Great. Palmer, I believe, in fact, I know, that the universe is composed of intelligence and matter. This intelligence is known in the Christian world as God. As a spiritual intelligence, it finds its expression, through the animal and vegetable creation. Man being the highest being, the highest manifestation of it. Isn't that similar to what Max Planck wrote? Much later than Palmer, much later. Palmer was a pioneer. This is why our profession has had so many problems. He was too much in advance for his time. And we are still in advance now with our concepts. Believe me. And this is why people who are successful, who've been around, who've got experience and everything, they are seduced by our profession. If we respect the principles of our profession. But if we try to play medical doctors, if we try to play physiotherapists, if we try to play the big healers and stuff like that, not a chance. Not a chance. You've got to be different. This is our heritage, to think in a different way, to look at the individual in a different way. One word about posture and I finish, if I can find it. I work much too much for you. I wanted to show you this picture too. Maybe you've seen it. Can you? I'm sorry, it's not in color. I don't have any printing stuff at the office, but in color, but not at all. Can you see that? Did you see it in the internet? Yeah. Huh? Isn't that complexity? This is one cell. This is the latest picture of one human cell in the complexity. You can recognize the different structure we've learned in school, but now it's much more defined and smaller and absolutely, it's perfect. It's an artwork, but we are in the complexity. We are not in the dual system, right, left, small, big, and everything. It's always complex, complex, complex. Well, I'm sorry, I don't find the stuff about posture. In one word, posture affects our health, breathing, heart rate, metabolism, digestive system, absolutely everything. On the chiropractor, we are very interested with our relationship with gravity, right? And this relationship with gravity is changing from birth to death permanently. This is why your patient cannot remain the same. This is why if you are stuck with a disease, you are reducing yourself or your vision of the situation. The individual is a star, not you, not the disease, the patient, the person, this unique person you've got in front of your eyes that you've got to observe and look. And then you find a shoulder a little higher than the other. You find a little rotation of the head. You see one side of the face a bit flatter than the other side. You see one cheekbone there a bit higher than the other one, or one line on the side of the nose a bit deeper than the other one. And you see that when he walks, one foot goes a little bit outside or a little bit in the inside. And you see that the knees are too close to one another or too much apart from one another. And each time you notice this thing and you gather information. And even if you know patients for 20 years, which is my case, I have patients for 30 years, when they come for a control, I check everything again each time because I know it has been changing and it changes permanently. And this gathering of information helps me to adjust afterwards without thinking. Without thinking, it will be automatic. Why? Who is going to take the decision? My knowledge? No. What I don't know. Who is taking the decision? My intelligence, my nervous system, the computer here is going to do the job. If I gather enough information, my nervous system will be able to provide the proper answer. And then I will know what to do with this patient. So my hands will go directly to the right place. I will know what to do. And this is a marvel of our profession. We don't need to, you have to trust yourself. You have to trust your body, to trust your intelligence, because you are going to stimulate another intelligence. And nobody can predict what's going to happen. But one thing is certain, something will happen. Something, it has to be. So chiropractic is operating 100% of the time. Okay, I am okay for the time being. Do you have any question? I know I've said everything.
Well, thank you so much, Jean-Paul. It was
welcome, Axel.
Amazing. So maybe if anyone have question, you are very welcome to take the speaking, to unmute yourself and ask a question.
I do have a question. First of all, I want to thank you so much for being here. It's been really inspiring. And it's actually a question related to one of the last things you talk about. And I was wondering, what is your suggestion to us in order to differentiate between a lie, a bullshit, and the truth?
How do we decide if it's a lie, bullshit, or the truth?
Exactly. Well, how to understand?
I understand. It's a good question. It's a very good question. First, your belly will say something, that belly feeling. You know, women are more intelligent than men because they are more sensitive in their belly. So the first information, when you're in contact with somebody, patient, or an information, you have a belly reaction. That belly reaction then goes to the heart. And then from the heart, it goes to the brain, where it is analyzed. Okay? But your first reaction is I would say, subjective, intimate, without control, because you have sympathy for somebody or hate for somebody or an information the same way. You feel comfortable with an information or uncomfortable. Your body is reacting right away before you. And then it affects your heart rate. And then only the heart rate sends signals to the brain and the nervous system to interpret this information, rationalize it and say, well, you have fear, maybe it's not justified, that and that. Rationalize the situation. Bullshit we get from morning until evening. It's a full-time job. All televisions are lying. All newspapers are lying. All magazines are lying. The newspaper Le Monde in France got 400 million from Bill Gates. So, and this is the same problem with evidence-based. Evidence-based is full of shit. I have seen it from the beginning. I have written about it, and I have all the notes here. And I can tell you, in England, I know there is one guy, I forgot his name. I got in contact with him. He's 100% for evidence-based. But the two chief redactor from the Lancet or the this other medical medicine in England, I forgot the name. It's okay, it's coming back. They stop their job. They say we cannot do that job anymore because everything we are publishing is not true. We cannot. We are getting into dark ages. Why? It's very simple to understand. One company produces aspirin B, for example. They give 2 million, 3 million for research. Do they want to read a report afterwards stating that aspirin A is better than B? You understand what I said? No way. No way. So all the research is paid by private interests, corporate interests, and this is where we are surrounded by lies all the time, glyphosate, and not the truth. So where do we find the truth? Besides that individual feeling, we find the truth in analyzing something and thinking, is that profitable for life or could it be negative for life? This is the whole situation now. I don't know if you heard about it because I love to bind things together. Have you heard that there is something cooking between Russia and NATO at the time being, or Ukraine and all these problems now? You can feel it coming. You can feel it coming. It is completely false, but they are building a new war. Like the First World War, the Second World War. This was created 100% with private interest. And this is exactly what's going on now because these people have an agenda. The Chinese have an agenda. And just to make it short to you, so you have a big vision. You remember what BJ used to say, get the big idea. The big idea. Think big. Think about the world as a human body. Think about Russia, for example, being the stomach. Think about America being the lungs. Think of France being the large intestine. Think about the body as many organs that work together, communicate together, share information, and stay connected. This is exactly what's happening on the globe, on Earth. And now, if one country doesn't understand, is not intelligent enough to understand that there is more efficiency if people work together rather than against one another, this is exactly the conflict we are getting into now. And this is why we have to be very cautious and very careful about propaganda, political things and stuff. But there is a lot to learn about politics, a lot, because there is a parallel. Political people are trying to sort out the problems, right? Do they use the right way? I don't think so. As long as they don't respect life, they don't start placing the human person, the person as a priority, it's wrong. And this is why Europe was a big mistake or a big failure. You know why? Because instead of giving priority to education, to kids, Erasmus program, exchange between the different countries so kids could learn another language, exchange, have friends in Spain or in England or anywhere, or in Germany, whatever you want. They give the priority to insurances, truck, money. That was number one. People, nobody cared about it. It was coming afterwards. Profit is always the number one priority. And society that is only built on profit has no good conscience, cannot have a conscience. And this is why we are exposed to a lot of crap, a lot of advertising, I would say. vote Democrat or vote Republican or vote for Macron or this and this and this. Let's be far away from that. We should be philosophers. We should be the defender of life on earth, on helping people to understand the situation too. The only way to help people understand, you have first to understand yourself. Did you get me? Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did completely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Can I ask you also like how to find, I mean, it's hard because like, as you were saying, like, like the media and the newspapers and everything,
Yeah.
they tend to get like the newspaper, they filter the informations. So how do you get like, how do you personally get involved with the truth? Like, how do you search for informations?
Can you see behind me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I have studied in, I have a baccalaureate in philosophy in France. And I was lucky enough to miss my baccalaureate the first time with the top grade in philosophy, but I got a 0 because of a teacher who told me, you are not going to show me how we teach history. And he gave me a 0 in history. So I had to repeat my year. And I loved philosophy. And I wanted to go on in philosophy. But my father was not too keen on philosophy. So he said, before you study philosophy, I would like you to have a degree, because my father had his life saved in Germany. He was 19 years old, but he was sent there. And his life was saved because he had a little paper that was a driving license. Without the driving license, he would have died. He would have been sent to salt mines. So he said, you can study whatever you want, but I want you first to have a paper. Whatever, electrician, you can can become a baker, plumber, a paper. I said, okay. I chose the degree very quick, which was physiotherapy. And I made a physiotherapy after my baccalaureate, 2 years in Dijon. And I got my degree. But I learned a lot in philosophy, and I kept love for philosophy. And then 2 years in Dijon in physiotherapy, the only thing that interested me, I had to spend 2 months in the biggest center for scoliosis in Europe. It's called the Berck, in Berck-Plage, Callot Institute. There were 400 kids, with a surgery eventually, also laying down 6 months with a weight on the chin and the feet. So I read a lot all my life. I read the old philosophers, Socrates. There is a lot of chiropractic in Socrates. You don't need to read all the books now. You have internet, you have Google, you look at some citations, you write the citation when you are interested, you buy yourself a notebook, and you start thinking about a lot of stuff. And you start looking into philosophers. People, you can check also with some neurologists. There are some, as I told you earlier, there are some medical professors, medical doctors, neurologists. They speak chiropractic. They write chiropractic 100%. So it's everywhere. You need to. I have a list of books for you that I will share with you eventually. But you have to read Biology of Belief from Bruce Lipton, right? You all read this. I already mentioned to you Nemesis Medical. But Bruce Lipton is a speaker that has impressed me the most. This guy he's a biologist from California. He reviewed D.D. Palmer's book completely from A to Z. And he said something. He made a lecture in California where I was a few years ago in Life West. The Wave, I was invited to. And he started with D.D. ideas. And then he went all the way to explain how it is related to the string theory. You know that string, you know what it is, the théorie des cordes in French, we say. And this was the most impressive lecture I have heard in my entire life about chiropractic. And then I was supposed to speak after this guy. And this is the worst lecture I have given in my entire life. I was so impressed by what I've heard. But Bruce Lipton, you should buy this book and read it, please. The Biology of Belief. This is a Bible for us to understand chiropractic philosophy. And chiropractic without philosophy is nothing, it's just a technique. And if you only have the technique, don't forget that you share it with thousands of people. In France, there are about 30,000 osteopaths for 1,000 chiropractors. I don't know exactly the numbers in Spain, but it's close. So be very careful. Keep your philosophy, cultivate it. This is your capital, this is your wealth. And keep your eyes open, you will find chiropractic everywhere. Everywhere. Picasso, without knowing it, he mentioned chiropractic philosophy. You know, that love of life, that respect for life, that beauty, that relationship with beauty, because the human body is beautiful. Health is beautiful. Everything is, a kid is beautiful, except if you concentrate on pathologies. You know, on our society, even in your school now, you are taught about pathology. Be careful with this. Don't do that bad. Or this could be dangerous, this and this and this. Fear. Forget fear. You're a hero. You're a genius. And I'm not paying compliments. Think about it. All this organization, your body, the way it is functioning and organized, you know, it's a, and you are unique too. Respect yourself. Do good things for you. You will become a good person, and good person make good chiropractors. Okay?
Jean-Paul?
Oui?
Bonsoir. I have a question for you.
Okay.
Like we are talking a lot about philosophy, techniques, and which place do you give to the education when you have a patient in front of you? Because we're gonna see a lot of patients at the clinic lying down and adjusting, but which place do you give to educate people? How do you do that?
Okay. It's a very good question, because we are talking about, you are bringing the point of communication, you are bringing the point of exchanging information. And it is clear that the patient has another vision of his situation than the chiropractor. We see different things. Okay, so how do I do that? First of all, and you mentioned something that I find interesting, you said patients laying down. I used to give some lectures to dentists. And the first question I had is, how many of you look at your patients standing or walking? Nobody. The patients, when the dentist gets into the room, the patient is already laying down on his chair to save time, and eventually with his mouth open already. So as a chiropractor, I would say, if you analyze your patient the same way the patient has been analyzed by a medical doctor or by a physiotherapist, you are just joining the crowd. Don't forget that most of the patients who come to see us have been seeing a medical doctor or a physiotherapist or an osteopath before you, right? So you've got to be different. So how can you be different? You cannot lie. You got to be true. So you can look at your patient and you appreciate his posture, but you do it seriously. You look at the people with the posturometer, for example, you look at the shoulder and everything, from the side, from each side, from the back, from the front and everything. And then you look at the gait, the way the patients move, and you look at everything that moves. And eventually you take note. You have a little paper there and you say right leg, make a longer step than left, 2-3 centimeters difference. The right arm moves much more than the other one, or he walks without moving his arms, or one arm gets stuck against the body. You know, each time is a different situation. So again, each time I will explain chiropractic in a different way to my patient. Depends on its age, depend on his age, on his education. Valérie? So, can you hear me still?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I have something came up on the screen. I don't know what it is. I can't even read what's written. So it's an announcement from Zoom. I don't know. I cannot even read it. Sorry. Okay, I continue then. So if you can hear, can you still hear?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So you can communicate with your patient, and I share information with my patient. I don't keep it for myself. And then I have a mirror. In each of my adjusting room, I have a big mirror, 2 meters high, and I say, oh, look. Oh, now turn your head to the right. Now turn your head to the left. Was it the same mobility? And the patient says, oh no, that was reduced on the left. And I say, did you know about it? No, I never noticed that. For example, but you introduce a dialogue and you show your patient that you are curious, that you are interested in this situation, not in his symptoms. Not you're not interested in his disease, in his pathology. You are interested in his personality. And then you find out a lot of stuff and you see a little scar on one leg, on one knee, and say, oh, did you have an accident there and everything? Oh, yeah, I fell when I was 20 years old or playing football or whatever. You see? And then you build with that, when your patient notices how interested and sincere you are, and very curious you are, then you can build, you open the door for better information. And trust is there. And if the patient trusts you, this is the most important thing for the future. You know that you're going to be more effective. If you cannot build that trust, it's going to be difficult. I'm sorry, I
Okay.
cannot see you anymore. My daughter is not better than me.
Moi, j'ai jamais vu ça.
So, Jean-Paul, once you build that trust, you can start to implement some philosophy of chiropractic.
Ah,
And
sont
go
là.
a bit,
Ah yeah, I found you again.
Ils étaient là.
Great. Okay, merci Valérie. Yeah, but the idea is to speak without speaking too much. As I told you, it took us years to understand chiropractic philosophy. I've studied a lot to understand that stuff. You don't, as I told you cannot force people. So it comes very slowly. And I tell people sometimes, these pains, these problems that you have, these symptoms that you have, are they good or bad? So people say bad. And I say wrong, it's good. Why is it good? And I say, because your body is trying to say something. Your body is not sending this pain just to bother you. Your body is your friend. You know, it's just trying to tell you, hey, that I have too much stress. I cannot cope with that anymore. We've got to change something. You start making the patient realize that he has been thinking wrong, because people are programmed to think pain bad. No, pain is good. Pain is good. The opportunity for a change. It's always good. Crisis is always good. In China, the same word. Crisis means opportunity for change. So this is the same in the body. This is the same. If you see a tree outside, which is not very straight, it's curving, something like that. It was a crisis. Why? It depends on the mineral he was getting from the ground, or the sun, or he's trying to get more sun or whatever. But there is a reason for something. It doesn't happen just like that. So slowly, you are not going to give a lecture and say, look, there is an innate intelligence and universal intelligence, and we correct the subluxation, and we are here to give you love and service and shout and dance, like in some seminars sometimes. This is crap. This is bullshit. You are very quiet. And number one, you've got to try, if I dare to say that, it's a good tip for you, if you remember that, make people relax. Take the fear away. Try to feel away. And if people notice that they notice that they feel that you know what you are talking about, mobility, relationships in the body and everything, they start listening. So I tell you very shortly a story about philosophy. In Paris, I wrote this in a book. In Paris, I was invited to visit a guy, a prince, a big prince, in his room at 7:30 in the morning. I got the call from a plane in the evening. So I went there at 7:30. And I get into that house, and there is a prince laying in his big bed, and two professors, not two professors like this, the number two professors in Paris in orthopedy, okay? Very known, very, very known. When I come into the room, there is a maître d' that brought me up there, the prince in his bed, and these two guys. So they start showing me the x-rays and say, look, the prince has been da 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 in English. They explain to me and everything. I tell the prince, lift up your right leg. And the guy says, I cannot. I said, lift up the left leg. And he said to me, I just told you I cannot. Very unhappy, very unfriendly. He's been there for 3 weeks. Nobody has been able to get him out of his bed. But I tell you something very quickly. This guy's an Arab guy. I tell you something. 10 minutes later, this guy is out of his bed, walking in the room. And the two medical doctors, the two professors, I still laugh about it. They say, Majesty, it's a miracle. And he was not a majesty. He was a highness, but not a majesty. So they are flattering him and everything. They don't understand. What did I do? What did I do? I did something they never thought of doing. I did some cranial work with my little finger, the gummy finger, plastic finger, caoutchouc. I did some reflex points and in the mouth. Do you think, I'm asking you a question now, all of you, do you think there might be a relationship between the mouth and the low back? How could this work? Complicated, huh? But these 2 points changed everything. I could get the prince out of the bed. I kept him as a patient for years. I used to visit him in Saudi or in Egypt or everywhere. He was the president of the UNICEF. This is a true story. And this, being able to do that, is implementing practically the chiropractic philosophy, which is the philosophy of relationship, interrelationship in the body, on the capacity of the body to heal itself. That's the best way to explain philosophy. You don't have to make big talks about it. I don't believe in that. It's boring. You cannot take a patient. I give lectures, but I give lectures about topics. I used to give lectures. I don't do it anymore, but with my patients in my office. And I used to love it too, because each time you learn something. I used to give lectures about school, children, posture for children, walking, but learn from life and think that nothing is easy. A kid between 9 months and 3 years will fall on his ass about 3,000 times because he can control gravity. Why? Because all the structures share information, feet, legs, back muscles and everything. They share information, they communicate and they stay connected. And we know that as chiropractors. But if you're a chiropractor that chooses to only know sciatica, disc bulge right and left and stuff like that, forget it. You're stuck with that situation. And the idea is to get people out of the situation. You take the fear away. You show a change. You show a change. It's very easy to get a change if you adjust somebody. Very, very easy. For example, reduce mobility right left. You do 2 reflex points, 2, and you gain 10, 20 degrees. Doesn't mean that it lasts forever, but the body reacted positively. And if the body reacted positively with a little nothing, you can imagine that you implement a little program or whatever, it's going to be better. This is the whole idea. It's so simple. If you are interested by all this, I gladly speak in another opportunity. If Axel invites me again, we will eventually go further into these details.
All right.
Okay?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Anybody else?
Yes, I got a question, Jean-Paul.
Yeah.
What is the biggest failure that you've done, that you've gone through to get the life that you had?
What is the greatest failure I have experienced that has allowed me to think the way I think today?
To think the way that you think today, or maybe to have the life that helped you to just discover this whole world.
Okay. I had a very interesting life. I was extremely, from the beginning, I was extremely successful, over more than normal, because I was lucky to work in Switzerland and in France, both. And in Switzerland, chiropractic was recognized, legalized, and in France it wasn't. That was in 1971. But in this office in Switzerland, we saw about 600 visits a week at the time. When I was in school with Meersman, I just say his name, Jean-Pierre Meersman Evans, when we were sitting next to one another, we could not conceive seeing less than 100 patients a day. That was our aim, minimum. I have achieved that very, very quickly. After a few weeks, few months, I was seeing this. I was working 6 days a week, very, very successful between 71 until 78. And I had a big house, swimming pool, 3 children, very, very successful, playing golf a little bit on weekend and skiing in Switzerland in winter and everything. Very nice life. And suddenly, in 1978, I was bored. So I went to California, I spent several weeks, and I wanted to, with some friends, we attended some seminar a little bit. And then I went to Brazil. And I was completely thrilled. I loved Brazil. I wanted to go there. So I go back home and I tell my wife, let's move. And she says, no, I love my house here and the children in school and everything. You know the story. But then I said, okay, I go, but you join me in a month and I will organize a new house for you with personal and everything is going to be fine. I was very lucky. I met the daughter of a minister there through other friends. So right away, I got access to the number one orthopedist in Rio de Janeiro. I adjusted a few, his assistant. That's how it happened. Well, I went anyway. I met a lot of interesting people. And I go back to France. And 3 weeks before leaving, I got into a very serious car accident. I had a big Jaguar, 4 doors. I was driving a colleague next to me to the office in Switzerland to introduce him to the patients because I had decided to leave. Or at 7 o'clock in the morning, beautiful weather, one guy comes in front of me frontal, completely frontal. I cannot avoid him because the road it's in the mountains between France and Switzerland. And there is a big shock. The car of the guy jumps in the air and falls on the roof of my car when I am stuck underneath. Anyway, I make it short. It lasted 2 years and I couldn't work. I had depression because the guy died. He was 18 years old. He was completely on the wrong side of the street. I couldn't do anything. Once he was passing some other cars, so I had many witnesses. He was 100% responsible, but it doesn't matter. I felt responsible, even if I couldn't do a thing. But I felt very bad, depressed, and everything. Lasted 2 years. In these 2 years, I studied a bit of kinesiology. I had already taken the seminar, but I went to the books from Walter, David Leaf, and all that. And then I make it short. And then in 1980, I was in Besançon. This accident happened in close to the Swiss border. And then I started my office in Paris. And because of the studies I made with kinesiology, there were not hundreds of people practicing that muscle testing and all that in Paris at that time. There was Daniel Nicole and maybe one other or two, but I was the pioneer. And right away, it gained me a lot of success with political people, Schauspieler, or whatever you want, artist and stuff like that. And then 3 years later, I got this private offer to become the private chiropractor for one of the richest person in the world. This is my whole story, very quickly. So that negative accident, 2 years without working, when you are 33 years old, and I was so successful, in golf, in skiing, in practice. I said, why did this happen to me? But I was an asshole, I thought I was a big shot because I was successful in all ways. And this accident made me realize that I was nothing, because I was down completely. I was dead practically. And because there wasn't one death, and because I was suffering physically, mentally, and everything, it got me richer. And then when I started practicing, I was another man. I was another doctor. I was more open to humility, to gratitude for what I had, because I was a survivor, actually, after this accident. I should have died. My big car saved me. And it changed my personality. First, I thought I was so successful by all means. And then I realized I was an idiot. I knew nothing. And then my thinking changed. My way to look at things changed. I started to value my kids a lot more because I was working so much. I couldn't see them grow. I was busy all the time, was working 6 days a week. And it has changed my life. So as we said before, a crisis is an opportunity to grow. And when the patients come to you with a sciatica, it's an opportunity for these patients to grow, which means to understand his body in a better way, to respect his body, to do the right things to protect his body for the future. Because as doctors, we have to teach the patient for the future, not only take care of the pain because we are healers, we are not healers again, but we help the people understand their body better and get better results. And if you get better results, what's happening? You get more and more patients, so more and more satisfaction. I'm not talking about the money even, which is coming normally. You don't have to learn tricks to make money on this and this, and attend some seminars where they tell you've got to see patients 3-4 times a week for 10 years, which is ridiculous and bullshit in my eyes. I hate that, to take advantage of patients. Never work for money, never. Work for a service and treat patients like your family. I have a big family. I have 6 children. I have never adjusted one of my kids 3 or 4 times a week. Never. Doesn't happen. Doesn't happen. You know. So why would I do that for patients? To make money? I don't need them. I have enough money. I have enough patients that bring me enough money. I don't need to give a class to people before and give them condition. Do that, otherwise you don't get my adjustment. This is threatening people. I don't like this attitude. It's, in my eyes, it's unethical. I'm sorry if I am a bit personal. Any other question? Did I answer you, Axel? Any other question?
I do have one last question.
Go ahead.
So I'd like to know more about your mentality, and 95% of the thoughts we have a day
They
are the same
repeat.
ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're the same one that goes over and over and over. So
Yeah.
sorry. So what are your 2-3 main questions that you ask yourself on a daily basis, or your 2 or 3 main thoughts that goes over and over in your head?
Well, what you're asking now is quite personal question, because my life is not your life. I have other priorities at my age. Everything, this is a fascination about life, which is not a programmed thing. You never know. Your priorities could change suddenly because of a disease, because of an accident, because of something happening. But what we try to keep all the time is the curiosity. The curiosity, the drive to learn more, to learn more for competent people, intelligent people, people that can give you something, and you can promote good ideas, good values. I think this is extremely important. Values. Our society needs good values, because the examples that we have in front of our eyes, it is the strategy of profit permanently. The quicker, the more possible money, and this is to be successful. Wrong. Completely wrong. I was very wealthy when I had this accident already for my age. I was very happy, but I had nothing. I was poor. So I learned from that, and I built wealth in another way, not only with money, but in another way as a person. And I became nicer. I became more polite. I had more patience with people. I was really engaged into helping people, but sincerely, not expecting something in return, but just like this, giving, sharing, and learning, and getting richer. Because without exchanges, if you remain in your tower, ivory tower, you are alone and you lose a lot. You know that a child, if he's deprived of emotions, of love, for example, his brain cannot develop properly. You need love, you need communication. So you need to exchange with people. You need to find always, to try to find a way to help them, a way to guide them, a way to give them a tip. And this is a bit of coaching. So our profession has a lot to do with coaching. Coaching teach them to respect their feet, to respect their joints, to respect their muscles, to respect their mobility, to respect what they eat, to respect the air quality, the water quality, anything, the soil quality. And this is why as chiropractor we are concerned. We are concerned with nature altogether because we belong to nature. And now what's happening right now is that we are getting cut from nature more and more. The soils are overproducing stuff, insecticide, pesticide. As a chiropractor, can you defend pesticides, glyphosate? I cannot, because it's going against life. Yes, it generates money, it's great, but it's killing people. Cancer, allergy. Let's choose. Let's try to choose in our profession vital rules to promote life, to support anything that helps life to stay alive. This is where we are right now. And I'm not, again, pessimistic, but this is an emergency. This is an emergency. And our profession has a political role to play. So think big, get bigger, go further than the pain on the elbow or the shoulder. Please take advantage of this to try to make people understand that each body is a gem. A gem, you feel like a diamond, like something without value. It cannot be paid. I tell you a small story about good values. You heard about Bill Gates, right? $120 billion worth. So Bill Gates rents a big house over in Switzerland, over Lausanne, over the lake, with a view on the Alps on the other side. And he can afford anything, right? So he invites 30 Nobel Prize people there, philosopher, neurologist, anatomist, orthopedist, whatever. 30 Nobel Prizes, and he say, look, you've got 3 weeks. And in 3 weeks, I would like you, please, to build me a little piece of grass. When I say a little piece of grass, I am thinking about, between two stones in the street, you have a little piece of grass sticking out like this. You know what I'm talking about, right? Green, 10 centimeters high. So he asked the guy, could you do that, please? Could you try to do that? And then he says, if you have a little time, could you try to build me one human cell? The drawing I showed you before. Could you try to build me one human cell? And each of you will get $10 million if you can achieve that. What's the end of the story? Could they achieve that? No. All the science in the world cannot build a piece of grass. All the science in the world today cannot build a human cell. And we are confronted with that situation today, that life is not respected, as I said earlier before, when we should fall in love every second with what we have in front of our eyes. A tree, a kid, a flower, a snowflake. It's a wonder. It's a wonder. So as chiropractors, we fall in love permanently with what we have around us. And this is the change in personality. This is what changes us from other people. So we are positive because we see the beauty of nature, the complexity of nature, the perfection of nature. And we are not concentrating all our energy on disease, on pain, on negative. We try to support what's supporting life. And number one, if you're able to give a little time, a little patience, a little understanding to your patient in front of you, you are helping him to become a better person. When he goes home, he will be nicer to his wife and to his kids. Do you understand? And he will share his knowledge with them, and they will grow. And then he will share with his brother or sister or uncle or whatever you want. And this is the way our profession will expand. But if we remain concentrated on structure, on bones, on muscles, this is a pity. Did I answer you?
Yes, you did. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Any other question? Thank you for your questions. Funny to see your faces there. But this Zoom is quite nice, actually.
I had a question.
Go ahead.
I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, I hear you perfectly.
Great. First of all, thank you so much for talking. It's really empowering, everything you have to say, and
Thank
I really
You're too
connects
kind.
and resonates. I'm curious about your schooling education. You said you graduated way back when. I feel like today a lot of our school is very focused on, like you said, the evidence-based. And I was wondering, and when you were learning, was it more philosophy involved in everything? The way they taught everything was the holistic view, a philosophical view. Was that in the school model, or was that something that came from you personally?
No, it came from my teacher. So as I told you, I made physiotherapy 2 years in Dijon. And then in France at the time, there was a professor, the number one orthopedist, not the number two, the number one orthopedist used to say, iliosacral joints don't move. In order to have one iliosacral joint to move, you would have to attach one horse on one side, one horse on the other side, and to whip them. That was his own word for word, what I'm citing. You understand? So there is no mobility with the sacral joints. I get to Davenport, and one of the first things I heard, the teacher is much more relaxed than this professor that was a big shot in France. De Sales was his name. You can look in the Google, you will see. And the teacher in America, very relaxed, he says, Jean-Paul, everything moves in the body. The teeth move when you talk. when you breathe. The iliosacral move, sure, anything move, anything that's alive move. There is no life without mobility. It is mobility that has allowed intelligence to develop. Why? Because mobility allows to gather information. It was all logical for me. So I was finished with my studies in March 71, but in January 71, my mother sends me a press article, a little one like this. I kept it for 40 years. A small press article that says, word for word, again, I'm citing, recent experiences with radio cinema proves that the iliosacral joints have mobility. Signed, Professor de Sèze. So I make it short. As a young man, I was finished. I was 26 years old exactly. I knew more than the #1 orthopedist for the entire country of France. Can you understand? I was a king. I was a king. I had more knowledge than this guy. Now think 1 second, just to laugh. Time for this guy to swallow this information. Time for this information to visit all medical schools in France. Time for all medical schools to adopt this concept of mobility and sacral yoke, and then all medical doctors to benefit from information. How long does it last? It hasn't arrived yet. We are speaking about a century or two, or maybe never. Maybe never. Don't forget, when one new idea comes on the market, first it's denied, then it's mocked down, it's looked down, and then they say, oh yeah, sure, it's true. You understand the process? But it could take 50 years, could take 100 years, could take 200 years. This is exactly my story in learning. So I have no complexes in front of medical doctors or whatever. I have adjusted. I could give you a secret. I know a lot of people in chiropractic profession. I have a lot of friends too, I have to admit. But I could have top relationship with medical doctors too. A very close relationship, seriously talking about his human body, about the way it functions and everything. Very nice. They are highly interested. So never be impressed by a medical doctor or a title or anything. Children know more than adults. They are more intelligent. They are much more intelligent. The top of intelligence is 8 years old and then it starts to go down. The world is directed by elderly people who are idiots. And this is why the world shuts the cows today. We need new intelligence. As chiropractors, we can provide that. It is our duty, I would say. Not we can, we must, we should. So this is why we've got to be active and dynamic and promote these concepts, because we have to change paradigm. The paradigm that deals with treating symptoms is a wrong and false paradigm. It generates a lot of money, more problems, more money. And Nietzsche said that beautifully. He said, when you are making a living from a fight with an enemy, you don't want the enemy to disappear. Do you understand? It's a beautiful sentence. When you make a living from the fight with an enemy, you don't want this enemy to disappear. Do people want the COVID to disappear? Who wants the COVID to disappear? Who will gain out of it? Who? People who have a little terrace and restaurant maybe? Who cares about these people? Who cares? What's important are the big companies, BlackRock, dealing with billions of dollars every day, stuff like that. But dealing with the life of little George or little Michael or whatever, they don't give a damn. We do give a damn. We do give a damn about each life, because the universe or the earth, the society will not be the same if one of us disappears. It's changing. So we respect life. This is our originality, and we promote life. Did I answer you?
Yeah, actually you did. That was really nice. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other question? I want to thank you. Thank you very much for your time. It's an honor to be able to share with you. And maybe we will see us again. Hopefully.
Yes, come back soon.
Okay. Axel, can you close?
Yes, thank you so much, Jean-Paul. It's already 2 hours and 22 minutes.
No.
Yeah.
You got me really good there. I didn't notice that.
And we are still 44 participants, so you did amazing. So thank you so much. Thank you everybody for listening to this.
One question.
Next week we are going to have. Oh, you got the question? Go ahead, Fernand.
Yeah, just one thing about the list of books you would could recommend. If you maybe could share that with Axel, so he could
I do
share
that.
that with us.
That's a very good idea. Gladly do so. I've done
Would
it
be
already.
amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, perfect. I really thank you for your interest too. I thank you all. I wish you a great evening. I am honored to see young people sharing my job that I've loved so much. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Oui.
Jean-Paul. Merci
Thank
beaucoup.
you.
Thank you a lot.
Okay.
Merci Jean-Paul.
De rien en français.
Merci.
Yes.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci
beaucoup. Merci.
Merci Jean-Paul.
Au revoir.
beaucoup.
À Bruno.
Oui.
Thank you so much.
Au revoir.
Merci Jean-Paul. Bonne soirée.
Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup Jean-Paul. Gros bisous.
Ah, qu'elle t'embrasse aussi.